I think that a lot of times Jesus' way of living was really upside down to what the rest of the world would typically say to do. Like typically he would say, you love your enemies. You do good to those who hurt you. The first is last and the last is first. Like all of these different phrases and things that he was saying, like he was really kind of taking some of the things that we thought were one way and he was like flipping them on his head and saying, really, we want this to actually be the opposite. And then a lot of the ways that, again, he just called us to live were in the same light. Like he said, like, I need you to serve the person who is maybe the widow or the orphan and not just the one in the room who really has a lot of status. And he started to flip all of these things. He started to show us what like love meant or what peace meant. And a lot of times it's just the opposite of what we would typically expect. And tonight I want to talk about another one of those things that typically we think is one way, but I want to see if we can actually see that it's actually the opposite. It's actually upside down from what we typically picture. And what that thing is pride. Now, normally when I picture pride, I picture like LeBron James, or I picture the Kardashians flaunting all their stuff, or I picture like maybe the friend that I have that is just like always trying to one-up me. Like I'll tell them a story and they'll just say, oh, well, I did that too and I did it better. And we go, okay, like that's what pride is. We look at that and go, okay, that's pride, that's arrogance. But today, I want to see there's also this other side of pride that's kind of upside down from what we typically picture. And that one I think is actually a lot more sneaky. And I think it's the one that typically we struggle with a little bit more, especially just like in the area where we live. So I want to start off first with just some definitions of what I'm talking about. So what we typically would call pride is actually a masked form of self-esteem, of low self-esteem, sorry. I present myself bigger because I actually see myself smaller. So typically, people that you see that are very outwardly arrogant, outwardly flaunting the things that they have, it's not typically because they're truly like prideful and think they're better than everyone. It's actually because they feel like they're less than everyone else. So they're trying to project something that's bigger. You guys see where I'm going here? And then what we would typically call low self-esteem, a lot of times can be a masked form of pride. I'm presenting myself smaller because I actually see myself as bigger. So when I actually have a pride problem, it probably isn't going to show on the outside. I'm actually going to present myself as smaller and go, oh, well, I'm not very good at that. Or I'm always going to be talking down about, man, I don't like how I look or how I dress. Oh, man, you're so much better than that than me. I wish I was like you. And it's this outward low self-esteem, but sometimes it can be because we actually have a pride problem inside. So then today, as we talk about pride, I'm not going to be hitting on the part of, hey, let's make sure we're not being arrogant. I'm actually going to be looking at this and say, okay, how can we actually make sure that we're not being prideful in this way? How can we make sure that we're not being prideful in making ourselves look smaller? And what I want to say before we jump into it is that I'm not saying that all low self-esteem is pride. Like there are things that we are genuinely insecure about that we have, and it doesn't always mean that you're prideful about it. The time when it switched to pride is if I have that and I don't actually believe it. Like I'm just saying something because of how it's going to make me look on the outside. So like maybe I really actually do like how I look, but then every time someone compliments me, I go, oh, well, but I know, but I don't really like this. Or I do something and someone says, hey, that was a really good job. And I go, oh, I know, but man, I could have done better. When inside, I really actually feel like I'm really good. So we're going to look at a story today, and I'm just going to pull a couple points from this. This is a story that probably a lot of us have heard, or you've at least heard the names of the people that are in it. But then we're going to look at it and go, oh, let's actually see how these things fit into this story, and how instead of having this look on the outside, we can start to have a Christ-like confidence. So we're going to be looking at the story of David and Goliath. The two armies were fighting against each other. Goliath goes out into the middle, and he's talking and, just basically mocking the people of God. Talk about what he's going to do. So this is where it starts. It says, Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, he will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. So typically, again, in the way that our culture would look at it, we would read this and we go, wow, he was really prideful. He was really stuck up and arrogant. Man, send anybody out here. I'm going to take any of them. But that really, he knew he was defying the armies of God. So really, he knew God is not on my side in this. So I'm actually going to project myself as bigger because I know I'm actually the underdog in this fight. Because I'm defying God. So again, this is what we normally would call pride. This is actually low self-esteem. He knows, oh man, I'm actually not all that. And he's trying to make himself seem bigger. So then David comes. And David asked the men who were standing near them, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" So David comes and he goes, "Hey, whoa, like he's not supposed to be talking like that. Like what's going to be done for that?" And this is the first thing that we see about the type of Christ-like confidence that we should have, is that it causes you to be offended when someone offends God. He didn't just stand up that way when someone says something crazy about him. And that he also didn't hear someone talking crazy about God and go, "Oh, well, but I don't want to hurt his feelings, so I'm just going to hang back." You see how that's pride? Because I'm actually trusting in my own ability to do something about it. Or I'm worried about how I'm going to look if I step into that. But because he had this Christ-like confidence, he was able to be offended by the Philistine offending God, and he stepped into it. When Eliab, David's older brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down to only watch the battle." So David was a shepherd. He had been watching over sheep. He went to go and take something to his brothers while they were at battle, and he hears all this. And he goes, "Hey, whoa, what are we going to do about it?" And his brother says, "Man, I know why you came down here. You just came down here because you were trying to see what was going on. You're not even supposed to be here." So then David goes to Saul, and he says, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord has rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, and he will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." So Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Okay, so he has these people, he is willing to step into it, and he has these people who are coming against him. His brother is saying he shouldn't be there. Saul is saying that he's too young and that he can't do anything about it. So this is the second thing we see. Christ-like confidence allows us to stay bold even when others don't believe in us. I know at times in my life, I maybe have wanted to do something and there's been someone who's had a question about it, or they've gone, "Oh, like you're not able to do that." And when I have pride, then I shrink down and go, "Oh, you know what? I actually don't think I can. I think you're right. I don't think I can do that." Because I'm just relying on my own power. And because of my pride, I'm only thinking about what I have the ability to do on my own and not what God has the ability to do through me. So that's why David was able to be confident, not because he had it all together, but because he knew, I know God's not happy with this, that this Philistine's talking this way. So I'm going to go and step into it. I know he's going to help me because I know that he wants to defy this too. So Christ-like confidence allows us to stay bold even when others don't believe in us. So Saul says, okay, you can go and take him on. So he goes down, he took his staff in his hand, and he chose 5 smooth stones from the stream. He put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. Now I want to just stop here for just a second and make a point on this too, because this is one that we miss sometimes. Christ-like confidence allows room for human error, but trusts the skills that have been built. So he didn't just go and pick up one stone and go, oh yeah, first try, he's gone. But he also didn't go and pick up like 50 stones and just go like, okay, I'm just going to go and like sit there and pelt them with them. And he was like, no, like somewhere between 1 and 5, like God's going to step in here. I'm going to leave some room for if I miss the first time, but somewhere between there, I'm going to be good. Do you guys see that this is what Christ-like confidence looks like? And instead of, we would think, oh, if he was prideful, he only picked up 1. No, if he was prideful, he would have picked up 50. Because he would have thought, oh man, I'm such a failure at this sometimes. I know I've missed before, and he'd have taken way more than what he needed. He had the confidence to know, yep, I know I could miss, but I'm also going to trust that God is going to be able to use the skills that he's given me to be able to get this done. So then David said to the Philistine, you come against me with a sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. Okay, so this is a key one right here. This is a point that I want us to really try and stick on tonight. Christ-like confidence knows that God will deliver, but that we have the ability to strike. I want you to look at this. This is a very specific thing that David says here. The Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down. That's what Christ-like confidence looks like. He didn't walk in and go, yeah, I will deliver you into my own hands, and I'm going to kill you. That would be pride on one hand. But then he also didn't walk out there and go like, well, I mean, God's just going to do it all. Like, I don't really have a part in it. Like, he did it all anyway. He had this balance. He realized God has the ability to deliver. I have the ability to still work in the skills that I've gained while I've been out in the pastures with the sheep and I've been defending them. So start to think about that in your own mind. What are some of the gifts and things that God has given you that maybe when someone goes and calls them out and says that there's something good about them, you just maybe give it all to God and you go, oh, well, it's not me at all. It's just all God. That's a form of pride because there are some things that God has given you that you have the ability to do. Or maybe what's the time that God has said, oh, you know what? Or someone has said, you know what? You did something really good. And you go, yeah, that was all me. I killed that one. And I delivered. This is what confidence looks like, is that I'm sitting in this balance of knowing God does the ultimate delivering, but he uses my skills to be able to get it done. So you go, okay, like, I realized that David did this, and I even was trying to think and imagine, like, whenever David, he goes out, he kills Goliath with the first stone, he kills him. And that whenever he went back to that army, like, I'm just so curious as to what his response would have been. Because I think that, like, if I had gone back, let's say I went out there and did that, and I had gone back, and people were like, wow, that was amazing. I said, well, I know, but like I really could have probably done better. And I mean, I was walking out there and I tripped. I looked so stupid. And I'd have talked down all the stuff that I did. I don't think that's how he would have gone back. But I also don't think he would have gone back and been like, man, you guys see how amazing I am? Like, I'm really it. That he could go back and they could go, wow, God used you in an amazing way. And he could just say, yep, thank you. He could take the compliment. He could just go, yep, because he was living in that balance. So we say, okay, I see that David did that, but was Jesus like that? Like you say this is Christ-like confidence. Like, was Jesus really like that? So I want to just really quickly look at a story of when Jesus did this. He was in Nazareth. And it said he had went and was brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue as was his custom. So he went like into basically what would be a modern day church. And he stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. And unrolling it, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." So he basically takes this writing from this prophet that everyone in there would have known, and he goes and rolls it, opens it up. He reads from it, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." He reads through all of this stuff to give sight to the blind and to heal people. And then he sits down and he goes, "Hey, by the way, all of that was about me." Again, if we right now heard someone talk like that, we'd go, that is a really prideful person. Because a lot of times we have pride upside down. It was really a confidence that he knew exactly who he was, and that he was able to walk into that situation and he wasn't going to water it down. He was going to know what the Spirit had put on him, and he was going to say, hey, what that writing is, that's me. So this is the last point. Christ-like confidence speaks the truth with authority. It doesn't water it down. It doesn't just try to smooth things over so that everyone's comfortable. He was willing to step in and say, here's what the truth is. I'm going to speak it with authority. So these are just a couple things that I want us to start to think about before we go into the time of discussion. The first thing is, don't talk down on your God-given image and talents. If God has given you the ability to do something really well, we have to really take it seriously that we do not talk down on that. That is something that the Spirit of God is giving you the power to be able to do well. The second thing is that we need to identify those gifts and walk in them confidently. So not only are we not going to talk down on them, we're going to walk in it with confidence. And when someone says, hey, do you have any gifts or talents or I'm going to say, yeah, I know exactly what it is, and I'm going to speak in it confidently. I know people that go into job interviews and they go like, man, the person asked me what 3 of my strengths were, and I just couldn't even think of anything to say. Like, we've got to be able to know what those things are that God's given us. We've got to walk in them confident. And then the last thing is we're going to use those gifts knowing that God is the one who delivers. So again, we're walking in those things confidently, but we know if I'm maybe trying to use my gift of evangelism to try to lead someone to Jesus and they give their life to Jesus, did I deliver them from their sin? Or did I deliver them from the things they were going through? No. But God, because I stepped into that with confidence, God used my gift to deliver them. Are we following that? So let's start to try and think through some of these things. Let's start to think through what are the gifts that God has given me, and have I been walking in those in confidence, or have I been walking in some of those things in pride?